Policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines. Let's walk through policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines, which are some of the most important governance concepts you'll need to recognize for the Security Plus exam. These concepts are frequently tested together, and the challenge is understanding the differences between them. The key is recognizing the level of authority, detail, and enforcement involved in each one. We'll begin with policies, because policies sit at the highest level. If a scenario describes a broad organizational rule or security expectation, you are dealing with a policy. A policy establishes direction and defines what the organization expects users and administrators to follow. Policies answer the question, what must be done? Policies are typically created by senior leadership or management and apply across the organization. For example, a company may create a policy stating that all employees must use multi-factor authentication when accessing company systems remotely. The policy establishes the requirement, but it does not explain the technical steps for implementation. Now let's move one level deeper into standards. If a question describes mandatory technical or operational requirements that must be followed exactly, that is a standard. Standards are specific, measurable, and enforceable. Standards answer the question, what specific rules must be followed? A common exam trap is confusing standards with policies. Policies provide direction, while standards define exact requirements used to support that policy. For example, if the company policy requires strong password security, the standard may specify passwords must be at least 14 characters long. Passwords must contain uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols. Passwords must be changed every 90 days. Those exact technical requirements are standards because they define specific enforceable rules. Now let's transition into procedures, because this is where execution happens. If the scenario describes step-by-step instructions used to complete a task, you are dealing with a procedure. Procedures explain exactly how to perform an action correctly. Procedures answer the question, how is the task performed? Procedures are highly detailed and are often written for administrators, technicians, or employees performing operational tasks. For example, a password reset procedure may include: verify the employee's identity. Open the account management system. Generate a temporary password. Require password change at next login. Document the reset request. That is a procedure because it provides ordered instructions for completing a task. Now let's move into guidelines, which are commonly confused with standards. If a question describes recommendations, best practices, or flexible suggestions that are not strictly enforced, that is a guideline. Guidelines provide advice to help users follow security practices, but they are not mandatory. Guidelines answer the question, what is recommended? A common trap is assuming all security documentation is mandatory. Guidelines are intentionally flexible. For example, an organization may recommend that employees avoid using public Wi-Fi networks when handling sensitive company data. While strongly encouraged, this may not be enforced as a strict requirement, making it a guideline rather than a standard. Now, let's connect these concepts together the way the exam expects you to think. Policies establish the overall security direction. Standards define the mandatory technical requirements supporting the policy. Procedures provide the exact steps for carrying out tasks. Guidelines offer flexible recommendations and best practices. Now let's bring everything together using recognition patterns. If the question describes broad organizational expectations, think policy. If it describes mandatory technical requirements, think standard. If it gives step-by-step instructions, think procedure. And if it provides optional recommendations or best practices, think guideline. The most important takeaway is to recognize the hierarchy. Policies define the goal. Standards enforce the rules. Procedures explain how to perform tasks. Guidelines recommend best practices. If you can recognize the level of detail, whether something is mandatory or optional, and whether it defines direction or execution, you'll be able to quickly eliminate incorrect answers and confidently select the correct concept on the exam.